You know, we all think we know what a genius is supposed to look like. But what if I told you that one of the greatest minds in all of human history didn't really think in words? Today, we're diving into the Einstein Paradox, a mystery that might just change how you think about intelligence forever.
Okay, get this. This quote isn't from some abstract artist. It's from Albert Einstein, the guy who gave us E equals mc squared. He's saying that for him, thoughts just appeared. The words? Oh, those came later. They were just a clumsy translation of what he was already seeing in his mind. This right here, this is the core of our paradox.
So, you gotta ask, right? How on earth does someone who doesn't think in language revolutionize fields like physics and math, which are built on the most precise language imaginable? How do you dream up the theory of relativity if you don't have the words to build it with? Well, that is exactly what we're going to unpack. To really get to the bottom of this, we first have to explore what's been called Einstein's genius paradox. It's this incredible clash between the genius we all celebrate and the very real struggles he faced.
Yeah, Einstein's childhood was not your typical genius story. He had a tough time with language. In fact, he reportedly didn't speak fluently until he was 9 years old. He hated rote memorization and found school to be a total drag. Some even called him a slow learner. But here's the thing, it probably wasn't a failure of his mind. It was more like his mind was working differently. The theory is that his visual, nonverbal brain was developing so incredibly fast that his language skills just couldn't keep pace. He was seeing these complex ideas about the universe, but he literally didn't have the words to describe them yet.
And Einstein's story really points to a bigger truth. Our whole idea of intelligence can be way too narrow. So, to understand a mind like his, we've got to look at the science behind two very different kinds of intelligence. Okay, so on one side, you've got your verbal IQ. Think of this as your brain's inner librarian. It's all about language, your vocabulary, how fast you can recall words, how well you organize information, and as you can imagine, it's really shaped by your formal schooling. But then, on the other side, you have nonverbal IQ. This is your brain's engineer or its architect. This is about seeing patterns, solving hands-on problems, and thinking in pictures and spaces. And the key thing here, it's way less affected by how many years you spent in a classroom. So what does this look like in the real world? Well, a study looked at a group of typical students, and here's what they found. See how close those two bars are? Verbal IQ is around 106, and nonverbal is, well, also around 106. It's a pretty balanced profile, totally what you'd expect. But then, researchers looked at a group of students who had difficulties with reading and writing, what we often call dyslexia. And whoa, the picture completely changed. You can see that massive gap, right? Their verbal IQ is lower, down around 99, which makes sense given their challenges with words. But look at their nonverbal IQ. It's way up there at almost 109. And this is the part that just flips the whole script. Let's put those nonverbal scores side by side. The students with reading difficulties didn't just have strong nonverbal skills. Their practical spatial intelligence was significantly higher than the typical students. So what does that really mean? It means their challenge isn't about not being smart. It's not a deficiency at all. It's a difference. We're looking at a brain that's wired differently, one where visual and spatial thinking is the superpower and processing language is the hurdle. Okay, so we've got this fascinating scientific idea. But what happens when a mind like this crashes into the real world? For that, we can look at a perfect and pretty intense example, the high-stakes national exam system in Taiwan. Just look at that number for a second. 12,158, that's how many Chinese characters students had to read in one high school entrance exam. And this wasn't for literature class, this was for natural sciences. It's basically a science test that secretly demands you be an Olympic-level speed reader. And this quote from a student just says it all, doesn't it? Every subject is like taking a Chinese exam. When every single test, whether it's physics or history, becomes a test of reading comprehension, you end up creating a system that only rewards one type of brain. You can just imagine how a young, word-struggling Einstein would do in a system like that. So what happens when you take a student with an Einstein-like brain, a brilliant visual thinker who finds language tricky, and you drop them into a system that's all about words? Well, you get a massive problem. You get the overlooked genius, a total system mismatch. This chart just lays it out so clearly. On one side, you have the student's natural strengths, a high nonverbal IQ, awesome visual reasoning, a knack for solving real problems.
And on the other side, you have what the system demands: high verbal skills, long-form reading, speed, and memorization. It's the classic square peg in a round hole. The very things that make the student brilliant are the things the test isn't even looking for. And that brings us back to this incredible quote, often credited to Einstein himself. Everyone is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. And that's really the tragic cost here, isn't it? We risk making our most innovative, visual thinkers feel like failures, all because we're only grading them on their ability to climb trees.
So the big question is, how do we fix it? How do we stop asking fish to climb trees? That's what this last section is all about. Unlocking hidden potential. This solution, according to all this research, begins with a really simple but powerful shift in our thinking. We have to stop obsessing over what these students can't do, like read a dense textbook super fast, and instead start building on what they can do, which is often see the world and solve problems in ways the rest of us can't even imagine.
So how do we actually do that? Well, it comes down to 3 key strategies. First, use their strengths to help them out. Teach abstract ideas visually. Instead of just a textbook on physics, give them hands-on models they can actually build and take apart. Second, create personalized programs. Our system is often just standard ed or special ed, with nothing in between. We need to create a middle ground to support these unique minds. And finally, number 3, build reasonable expectations. As soon as parents, teachers, and the students themselves understand that this is a difference, not a deficit, so much of that anxiety and frustration just melts away.
And that leaves us with one last big question to think about. Einstein managed to succeed, but he largely did it by sidestepping the rigid systems of his day. It really makes you wonder, in our modern world, which seems to test for just one kind of smarts, how many future Einsteins, with their incredible visual gifts, are being left behind, or worse, buried by the very system that's supposed to help them grow?